But as far as design, from what I understand from talking to the town administrator, the Chester people have progressed significantly in their design. Your alignment's relatively short. We've gotten bids from surveyors. So that work could be done over the next couple months. The design could be done within a year, and the construction period would be a year to 18 months.
So 18 months plus the other 6 months. You're talking about maybe a 2-year.
It's 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
Which is still less than 4 years of development.
Right, and I don't know how expeditiously the town would proceed with trying to develop all those wells, or what the timing is for the need, because, I mean, the need is to match the development demand.
Right.
So that 4 years would be from the time you start to when you put your first well into production. I don't know if MDE would be able to or willing to process appropriations permits for 6 wells all over the town at one time, because you wouldn't have the demand right away. So it's a little bit different. I'm not trying to avoid your question, but it's not quite apples to apples.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Okay, now.
Thank you, Mayor Fisher. Again, my name is George Beer, and I'm president of Delaware Valley Development Company. We develop multifamily communities throughout the region. We actually have one that is in the town of Rising Sun, which we built about 5 years ago by the name of Maple Heights Apartments. We're basically along the railroad tracks in the northeast side of town. We have 78 units there, and have planned to build an additional 60 units there. The reason I'm here this evening is to ask the commissioners for an endorsement or support of the project, and I'll end and explain a little bit more about what I'm asking after I talk a little bit about what Maple Heights is and what goes on there. First of all, I went back and did some research on our community about a month and a half ago. A couple interesting facts, and I'm going to repeat myself because I said this at last week's meeting too, but 2 weeks ago, it was quite a hectic evening. First of all, 75% of all of the tenants that we have at Maple Heights Apartments came from either the immediate zip code, that is the Rising Sun zip code, or an adjacent zip code. So basically, we're not building housing for people who aren't already in this area. What we find is a lot of our tenants are older and living with their kids, or younger and living with their parents. They are underhoused, that is, maybe a family of 3 or 4 is in a small 1-bedroom because they can't afford anything more, or they're living in substandard housing, and substandard housing can mean any number of things, and it could be simple stuff like insulation, windows, and to more egregious problems like mold problems. So I guess the first point I wanted to make is our Maple Heights community. Basically, 75% of the people who live there already lived in this area in the first place. As far as who our tenants are, the single biggest group of tenants that we have over Maple Heights, and I'm going to kind of group them in ways that make sense to me. Our single biggest group of tenants are elderly, people on veterans benefits, and the disabled. They make up almost a third of all of our tenants over there. We have an awful lot of people who actually are not only on, say, Social Security because they're disabled, but also have a Section 8 voucher from the county paying a portion of the rent. But that's about a third of our tenants. The other 2/3 of our tenants are basically working families. We've got other than the elderly households, we have one and only one household over there right now that's unemployed. Where do they work? They work here in town. They work down at Martin's. They work at the hardware store. They work at the pizza shop. They basically kind of run the town. A lot of them work for Cecil County in various functions. Do we have Section 8? Do we have some Section 8 residents? Yes, we have 13 Section 8 residents as of today. About a third of those are also residents that are either elderly or disabled. The balance of the residents that have a Section 8 voucher all work but for one, and that is someone who just went on unemployment recently. A couple other concerns that have been raised about our Maple Heights community, and had a meeting with the mayor, and he raised some along the way, were concerns about police calls and public safety. Actually had talked to Chief Peterson, and he gave us a list of, well, how many police calls have we had this year? We have a police call about one every 8 to 9 days. About a third of those police calls, as I broke them down, were basically a police call to check on the well-being, and the like, and the rest were things like mischief, things like assault, things like somebody breaking into a car. We do have police calls, but I don't think we have any more police calls, given the size of our community, than any other community in Rising Sun. I'd like to think we have less. We manage all of our own communities. We have someone living there on site, full-time. I ride by every time I come down here, every time my parents have a place over for Port Deposit. I ride by all the time, and I've never seen anything that was alarming to us. We have a lot of families and little kids riding their bikes. Why am I here? In order to get funding from the Maryland Department of Housing and other funding sources, I need to show up with a funding application to the Maryland Department of Housing with two things. One is a local letter of support, and one is a local contribution. The county has agreed to provide the contribution for us to submit a financing application. And I'm here this evening to one, I guess, answer any questions that the commissioners might have, or Mayor Fisher might have, and then two, I'm here to ask for a simple resolution or letter just saying that you support us moving forward. I have done a couple renderings, and I brought a handful of copies for each, and I give some out to the audience. We've kind of looked at the project in two different ways. And Barry Montgomery actually he's my neighbor, and he owns the property. I guess he's going to help me hand stuff out too. What we did is, right now there is an existing plan for the property. That plan, I think, has preliminary plan approval. I think the tweaking of the engineering, was stopped, I guess, when the moratorium was put in place several years ago at the town. But a lot of the infrastructure is already on this piece of property. It's actually adjacent to us, and it's behind the existing Maple Heights townhouse community. So we did one plan. Hey, Barry, I'm going to need one of those to give to the people up front. Barry, can you put one up there? So the first thing we did is we looked at a plan that would basically use the existing infrastructure that was put in place there. And what we ended up with was, and Barry's original plan was a community that had some townhouses, it had some twins, and it had some single-family homes. And so what we did is I tried to come up, we came up with a sketch, and that's kind of what's currently got preliminary plan approval right now. And I think the only thing you were kind of short on, Barry, was getting the stormwater worked out. Correct.
We were in the process of working on stormwater management reviews and approval with the county planning board, so water board was in place. We just stopped the process because of uncertainty.
So what we did is in order to make this less confusing, we went ahead and just used the existing plan that Barry had in place, that almost all the engineering is done for, as I said. A lot of the sewer laterals are in, and a lot of the infrastructure is currently in the ground. We also had sent, and this I think came by email about a week and a half ago to the commissioners. I sent it to Calvin, of a plan that kind of condenses the development into a smaller area. But regardless, we're looking to build 60 additional units. Right now we've got 78 units there. This is the second plan that is just a little bit more compact, and what it does is it uses development product buildings that are consistent with the adjacent Maple Heights community. Right now, the ultimate plan, I don't think, is as important now is whether we can get financing or not for the Maryland Department of Housing. We could, if the town liked the original layout with the singles and the twins, I can do that, or we can go back and we can kind of consolidate and compress the development. What I am here though tonight is to ask that the commissioners lend me their support, as I said, I'm not asking for any dollars, but simply their support in putting an application into the Maryland Department of Housing. So I guess I'll turn this back over to.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Beer?
I do have a question, if I may, Mr. Mayor. The plan that I'm looking at here, the colors plan.
Yes.
Is that the plan you're thinking about going with, or is this the plan you're thinking about going with? I'm trying to.
I am, what we did is after we originally came up with the plan, which would be the black and white plan, which was more condensed. I guess, the mayor had concerns about me going to planning and about me going through the planning process and the engineering process. And so I pulled Gary's plan, which is basically all engineered and all pretty much complete. I'm pretty flexible. You know, right now, we're just submitting a financing application. In no way am I asking anybody for a zoning approval. I'm not asking for any planning approval. I'm not asking for any engineering approval. I know that I need to go through all of the steps that it takes in the development process. To the extent that we work with Mary's plan, try to work on that with your planning commission and the township engineer, or we do a different plan. I'm not asking for anything that would constitute an approval from a land planning standpoint.
Okay, what I'm trying to ask is, I know you talked about previously at the last meeting about establishing more units similar to the ones you had before. In this plan, I do see some single-family homes, some duplexes, and some townhouses as well. Were you thinking about going along that route?
The number of units in both plans is the same. There's 59 rental units in each plan. So the density, we agreed to keep the number at 59 rental units and 1 unit for a manager. So the total number would be 60, and I'm basically somewhat flexible and would like to hear from the planning commission and what the town thought about when you want more compressors to have the variety of product.
Thank you.
When do you have to have your answer?
My application is due in 2 weeks, and so I'm here this evening asking for support from you and the commissioners.
Does anybody have any comments? I think that we should staff it more through planning and zoning before we make this commitment.
And I can appreciate that thinking. Without being able to put a financing application in, me spending money on engineering and planning, either of those is kind of, it's kind of a cart before the horse. I've got a fully engineered, Barry's plan is fully engineered. I wouldn't really have to go back and do anything other than, I think, clean up the stormwater design that is at the county.
But there's other considerations, and I think that, it's just a little premature to give that assurance tonight.
I had one quick question just to clarify for myself so I understand. Both of these plans, whether it's the more condensed or the mix, these will be rental properties, correct?
Yes, they will actually. And as an aside to that, something else that because I saw Mayor Fisher this morning at the county commissioners meeting, and one thing I offered up to him when we were talking about just how this thing evolves. I have the ability to do these as rent, with a purchase option in the year 15. And I basically actually put that into a sample resolution that I sent around today, where I committed to doing a lease and a purchase program, which is something that the program provides for.
I would ask how you would do that with the more condensed version.
I would have a very difficult time doing it with the more condensed version. You're absolutely right. When I started talking to the mayor about the existing plan versus a new plan, and then I guess I made a conscious decision 2 days ago to go ahead and look at the existing plan that was out there. That seemed very conducive because it's all subdivided into individual pieces. So that thinking kind of went along with the newer version of the plan, but the older land plan that has the various products, the twins, the singles, and the townhouses.
And that fits with that side of the development better
Yes,
than the apartment unit, the condensed plan. And it does provide for home ownership in the future. But is that 15 years after the development of the project, and let's just say you have people moving out after 5 years, do they have to wait 15 years to purchase it?
The people we would be qualified people probably in the 10th through the 15th year. The initial, we've had residents, I've had residents that have been around for upwards of 20 years. Am I going to, as soon as someone moves in the first time, are we going to start talking seriously about the home ownership option out in 15 years? I guess if it's a young family, maybe, but if it's an elderly household, we're probably not going to talk about that. But
Okay,
home
so
ownership would be a commitment I would make, but I couldn't make it to a tenant the first day because who knows where we'd all be in, where they would be in 15 years.
Okay, so you're saying that they would be available to tenants in year 15, whoever the tenant might be, but it's in year 15 of the development,
Yes, ma'am.
not in year 15 of them having lived there.
No, it's in year 15 of the development.
Okay, thank you.
Any more comments? Okay.
When are you planning to submit your,
I need to submit, it's 2 weeks today.
so,
So we have a little time.
No,
no,
my application has to be there by Tuesday at 5 o'clock.
2 weeks from today.
and
From
we
today.
don't need you for that.
Well, but we can. Right. And I would like the planning and zoning to consider it before we consider it. I want their recommendation.
I think we've already got, I think we're past that, and Mr. Montgomery kind of being my partner in this, I know it's not open to the public, but Barry, can you shed some light on where this is, planning and zoning wise?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but George submitted this project a year ago, right?
Yes.
So he's kind of been through the process with this before, and maybe some of you have been familiar with it when he was here before, didn't we? I think maybe 2 of you were commissioners when he submitted it. Maybe you weren't, maybe none of you were familiar with it. See, this is the second round of it submitted. He didn't get approved in the previous time that he submitted it. And so he tried to do it a second round, so.
He didn't get approved for financing or,
No, ma'am, I actually missed it by one, there's 300, they're pointing categories, and I missed it by 1 point. We had like 289 points, I
When
need
he submitted,
290.
when he
So
submitted, it
planning-
had so many dollars.
so planning and zoning has already said that they are on board for the development. Is that in order for you?
That would be fair to say, that they have seen, the planning commission anytime has saw this before. Maybe it might be a little bit different configuration, but it's not new to town, because he's been here with us before.
Yeah, we actually, last cycle, we had a letter from the previous mayor supporting the project.
Previous board, he had it, he had the
And
same
the
way that
funding
we
cycle.
always had before.
Just for clarification, Joanne, Ms. Osborne, were we, do you recall us hearing this before?
No.
Can
That was done before we,
That's what I thought, all right.
It might have been just before
might have been in May.
the oldest two of you.
Yeah, the
Okay.
oldest two of us.
And again, I'm not asking for anything from the planning commission right now. And I'll go through the planning commission process and basically live and die by whatever comes out of that process. I'm
Well, the
basically
planning
just-
commission has already approved the development there, is that correct?
Yes.
So therefore, you're just saying.
We have folks from planning and zoning here, I mean, maybe they can,
David Warren.
yeah. David Warner from planning and zoning, thank you, David.
I'm a vice chairman of Planning and Zoning Commission, and I can give some, kind of like, I guess, factual feedback on this. The color plan is in alignment with the currently approved plan that was approved in, I want to say around, it was 2004, I can't remember the exact month, but that was approved in 2004. This probably,
Yeah, that's right
yeah, this, I have a signed copy, I'm sure at home, but I think it was, about June of, it was a little bit before this, actually. This is June of 2005, but, well, this includes the phase 3. This here reflects phase 2's development. Matter of fact, phase 3 is basically, well, not to go back, there is one little section here of, well, not actually, this includes all phase 3 and everything, yeah. So this was initially approved. Phase 2 was approved, which included the twins along the railroad tracks, the townhouses on Shady Maple, the townhouses, the 2 townhouses on the west side of Bunty Trail, and then the 4 groups of townhouses between Bunty Trail and Maple Heights on the south end. Phase 3 is the 6 townhouses on the northmost section of Maple Heights Lane, the 4 townhouses on Bunty Trail, and the 2, 4, 6 single-family homes on the cul-de-sac, which was approved sometime around. I'd have to actually go back and check on that. I don't have the exact approval on that one, but it was definitely included as part of the plans. It was reflected on the plans for the original Maple Heights apartments, which was sometime in 2005. This plan that's in black and white for the 5 buildings and the community center, I don't ever recall seeing this come before planning and zoning.
I made that up about a week ago, so you probably
Okay.
never had it before.
I was going to just clarify that. That's never been proposed to planning and zoning whatsoever. I'm sorry.
No, we were basically tasked with I guess one of the comments from last meeting was, well, where would these buildings be in relationship to the existing townhouses? And so I went ahead and said, well, how can I squeeze them up in a corner? Then the concern about the planning commission arose, and so I guess in talking to several people, we said, well, let's go with the existing plan. It's already been approved by the planning commission and the town. That's what we showed there. We kind of glorified it with a little bit of color. But that isn't the plan. That's actually the original, the actual engineered drawing, a reduced copy of it is right here, which is the same thing, this is just prettier.
And yeah, and I mean, this is the only. Well, yeah, I guess. Okay. Common space. There was, I know, a few sections of common space. Yeah. I mean, this, generally speaking, would be the existing approved plan. There would, I mean, obviously, any variances or anything, they would need water and sewer, of course. And then it wasn't completely approved. It was far along in the process, though. So I think one of the things that was pending was water and sewer. And there may have been some other things. I'd have to go back and pull all the details of it. But this color copy is generally what they could, legally do there with some final approvals and such. This here would require a re-subdivision.
Special exception, probably require special exception too.
Yeah, it would require a re-subdivision of the land, special exceptions, I'm sure. It would probably require a lot of things. But the color plan, they could just about, I mean,
How many single-family dwellings on the 6 color plan?
it's 6.
There's six
So
single
that
families.
would be what you would sell, right?
No, we'd sell them all. Some of them are semi-detached. There's townhouses and there's duplexes, and then there's singles. All of them would be sold at year 15.
I guess my question is one of, because I haven't been through this particular process before of doing a resolution like this. Is this normally how you would go about developing something like this? You need, if you other municipalities do this, this is,
Oh, yeah, we had a resolution last year from the town when we submitted and did get funded. We had an original resolution from the town when we did get funded for the first phase. We built out in Northeast, which required we had a resolution from the town of Northeast. And in that instance, we needed a combination of resolutions from the town and the county. As I said this morning, the county agreed to provide us with a local contribution, so I wouldn't have to come to Rise and Sun and ask for any money out of your pocket other than just you saying that you endorse the project, because the county's going to pick up the requirement for a contribution.
so this is part of the normal process you go through? Okay, because I missed this before, so that's fine.
In the previous submission, there was 27 submissions throughout the state, the last round. Okay? The state had $6 million, so they score these projects for this area. Okay, so they have so much money, so then they start with the highest scoring point, and he gets money, and he gets money.
Gotcha.
Out of 27 in the last round, they funded 3.
Okay.
In the previous round, there was 47. And I think they approved like 9 of those. Now, there's one down in Northeast that I'm involved with right now that got approved in the 3 funding round last fall. So it's about to get closed. Right here, anybody? But it's the process of almost getting right. It had the same thing. It had to have a letter from the county saying.
Please, Barry, spoke so that people can hear you.
But want me to repeat what I said?
No, thank you, that was helpful, thank you.
Okay, you'll have your chance in the comment period.
Based on the fact that this is in already an approved project, and all you're doing right now is asking us if we are supporting the fact that we're going to have these rental units in Rising Sun, I'm suggesting that we actually make this resolution so that he can get the funding for the project. I don't see a problem with that, because you still have to go through all the other stuff with the zoning and planning, and
Yes.
you may not even get the funding.
Then there's that.
I mean, if it were for the,
Color plan.
Right,
Not the black.
exactly. I was gonna say,
We're not approving the
it's,
plan.
right,
We're
it's, yeah.
allowing him to say, we don't object to the project.
Pardon me? That incurs some liability. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, do we incur liability by?
okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really privy to the details other than what was explained here. I know the mayor's been the point person on the project. I know, I guess we'll all do it together. I know the mayor's been the point person and had the meetings. I am familiar with the fact that you came last year, last round, whenever. So I can't really talk to the details, but let me give you, everything that was stated about the program is factual, what the presenter said. This is not necessarily related to project approval, meaning the house is on the ground. It's more of the programmatic funding mechanism that he has to use through the state. So there's no liability involved. You can't go back on your word. I mean, you're sending a letter in saying we support this project. You have to link it to a project. He goes through the process, and then he still needs to do the land development process no matter what it would be. This is simply for the funding. But I can't speak to the details, or I don't know what representations have been made during the meetings with the mayor. So, but there's no liability involved. However, the loss, it seems that if you don't do this now, you miss out on the round of funding, and there'll be another one sometime.
Next year.
Probably a year from now, yes.
All right, with it?
I'm from planning code perspective.
I have a question for Dave, if I may, Mr. Mayor. You're telling me that the colored plan, the one that's in front of us here, was approved by planning and zoning, okay? But this one over here wasn't approved by planning and zoning, correct?
Correct.
I'm trying to,
The color
you're,
plan
are you getting
is-
approval for both plans?
No,
or-
not getting approval for either. Actually, I'm just asking for a letter of support, so I can go for funding, and then we'll come back to the planning commission, probably with this plan, and find out where it ended up, where the stormwater management, review ended up with the county, because I understand that more sort of kind of the two big hitches, but I'm not asking approval for anything other than the ability to make an application to build 60 units on that ground, and I'll come back to the planning commission. I'll come back to the
Will
process.
you assure us that will be the blue plan?
Yes, I have no problem putting that in writing, that will stay consistent with the approved plan, which actually the version I've got, the 8.5 by 11, is actually probably a better one than the colored version, the actual recorded plan here. This is really what it is.
Thank you, Gary. All right. Town of Rising Sun Resolution 2, 2012-10. A resolution of the Town of Rising Sun, Cecil County, Maryland, approving the development of rental housing to be financed by the Department of Housing and Community Development of the State of Maryland, the DHCD. Whereas the Commissioners of the Town of Rising Sun, the town, recognizes the need for quality, safe, and affordable housing in Rising Sun for citizens with limited income. And whereas Delaware Valley Development Company proposes to develop and operate a rental housing community comprised of 59 units known as Maple Heights Phase 2, lots 41 to 54, 79 to 97, and Phase 3, lots 98 to 115, the project on Maple Heights Lane. And whereas Delaware Valley Development Company agrees to structure the development so that after 15 years, the units are transitioned into home ownership program. And whereas the applicable law, regulations, and DHCD requirements necessitate support of the project by the town and the local contribution from either the town or Cecil County, the county. And now therefore be it resolved that the Commissioners of the town hereby endorse both the development of the project upon the proposed site and the submission of a funding application to the DHCD in the September 2012 funding cycle, and acknowledges that the county is making a local contribution to the project. And be it further resolved that the endorsement of the development of the project shall in no way be construed as zoning, planning, or engineering approval, and copies of this resolution be sent to the Secretary of Housing and Community Development of the State of Maryland and the Board of County Commissioners of Cecil County, Maryland. May I have a motion on passing this resolution?
I make a motion to pass it.
I make the motion to pass this.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Can I have some discussion, if I may? I actually have a conflict of interest with this, so I'm going to have to withstand from voting for it. My conflict of interest is I actually live in the neighboring development, so I'm not going to make a decision on this. I'm going to step away. So whatever decision you guys make, but I am I'm not going to report it, so, yeah.
We have one abstention. All in favor, say aye.
Mayor, if I may, I think there's a relevant question to ask the town attorney
Okay.
for clarification. Jay, I don't mean to put you on the spot. The question I have is in regards to the impact fees that have to be paid. Do we probably have to make it clear here that we, A, are in a sewer water moratorium, two, we have a variety of legal issues spiraling around that, And so we also, in addition to planning and zoning approvals, we have to navigate MDE allocation because we're in a sewer and water moratorium, we're in a consent decree with the sewer plan. So do we have to make sure that that's articulated into the minutes, that that could have an impact on any approvals also?
I'll do it for you, just so that everybody's clear, and I'm sure the developer is clear, that part of the planning and zoning process means final approval, and final approval means that you have adequate services to provide for the development, and you can't get final approval until that happens. And I know this is a little bit already approved and not, but we understand that. And of course, after final approval is given, in order to get building permits, you would have to pay any impact fee at the prevailing rate, and that's standard operating procedure unless there's exceptions given, which we're not in a position to do. The biggest issue you'll have, aside from planning approval, is getting building permits. And again, we are way down the road here, but we might as well put it on the record, is that the town needs to do something to lift its moratorium so that it can actually issue building permits. And not just for this project, but for all the projects it's facing. So I think that's clearly on the record, and I'm sure it's already obvious, but now it's said.
Any more old business? No, you did not vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 3 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more old business? How about any new business? Okay. The mayor and commissioners report. I have a little statement here that I would like to make. I sincerely hope that the Commissioners and I can find a way to work together for the best interest of the citizens of Rising Sun, the business people, and the people in the surrounding community, in working toward a more cost-effective, collaborative, and responsive government for the town of Rising Sun. If nothing else has been accomplished at this point, it has generated interest on the part of the citizens in participation in the governing process. I commend you for doing that, and hopefully that you will continue to show an interest in the town and what's happening in the town. I promise you that I will be available for input by any of you, and hope that the commissioners will collaborate in trying to work with me and each other. Thank you for all very much for being here this evening. And with that, Commissioner Berkowitz.
I don't have anything to report.
Okay. Commissioner Ryan.
All right, I have a few things I want to say. I had a great meeting with our contractor who was hired to remove the millings at our dog park. I actually walked the park with our town administrator and our public works, our head of our public works. The contractor actually already installed the silk fence, and he broke up the asphalt millings and piled them up for removal. So we're moving along with that. With Community Park, I had the Public Works officials paint the park benches. I also had them remove the volleyball court because of the fact that I looked, the volleyball court had started to have grass growing in it, and I actually discovered underneath the grass it was cat and dog feces. So I deemed it unsafe and asked them to remove the court. There are still a few issues that I think need to be addressed down there, and they also replaced the eye hooks for the swings. There are a couple more issues that I think need to be addressed down there, but I'll be talking to them in the future about that. Also, former Commissioner Augie Pearson called me and actually gave me the number of an arborist who's going to come down and inspect our trees. I thank him very much for that. I left a voicemail for the guy, and he's going to give me a call back. As far as the website goes, as you know, I was put in charge of it at the last meeting. I did ask the board to fill out bios for our town website and return them to me within the next 2 weeks. And after tonight's meeting, Dave Warnick has actually graciously agreed to take photos of each of us to be posted onto the website. And this is something that's just on a personal note. I just wanted the board to know that I was appointed by the president of the Maryland Municipal League to serve as a board member of their communications committee, and the first meeting's tomorrow night in Annapolis. So I'll be representing the town of Residence on there. So that's all I have to say.
I'll make my comments very brief. I just want to thank the Lions Club for a wonderful crab feast on Friday night. I enjoyed it, and Brandy and her little girl Sophia enjoyed it too. They went home before I did because Sophia was a little tired. It was a long day for her. But it was a great event, and I know Joe Gutterell saw the wisdom of my coin dollars that I like to use so much, because other people were putting paper dollars down on the money wheel and they would blow away, and mine just stayed right there on the table. And I also wanted to mention, for those of you who are waiting like I am for the library to reopen, there is a date that is on the schedule for the library to reopen following the roof renovations, and that is September 12th is the scheduled date for the library here in town to reopen. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, now it's citizen comments.
Thank you. Couple of comments. We trimmed the bushes along Colonial Way and going down into the other street, whatever its name is. Not that I know. Of course, I didn't know the name of the street across from me when I lived on Queen Street.
Dawn Drive.
No.
Dawn.
It turns into something else before it turns
Dawn.
into Ryan.
Dawn Drive.
Dawn Drive. Okay, so we got a picture of the trees having been trimmed, but I understand there's an additional issue on that, so I'll talk to the residents down there about that before I bring